A very good afternoon to all esteemed guests. It is with great privilege that Vivekanand International Foundation welcomes His Excellency Mr. Sergey V. Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. May I now request Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director VIF, to present a memento and an Angvastaram to the Honorable Foreign Minister. I now kindly request the Director VIF to please deliver his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Excellency, Mr. Lavrov, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you, sir, to the Vivekanand International Foundation. We are deeply honored by your presence here. We appreciate that you have taken time out of your very busy and tightly packed schedule in New Delhi to address us. We are also honored by the presence of Shri Ajit Doval, NSA, Dr. S. Jaishankar, Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Kudashev, Ambassador Kamal Sibal, Ambassador Satinder Lamba, Ambassador Pankaj Saran, Ambassador P.S. Raghavan, who is the convener of the National Security Advisory Board, and the distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, members of the strategic community, and friends from the media. Excellency, you do not require elaborate introduction to this gathering. Excellency Lavrov has been the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation since 2004. Prior to that, he was permanent representative of the Russian Federation to the UN for 10 years. His vast experience in international diplomacy stands him apart as a statesman of great eminence. It's a matter of great pride for us that a luminary of his stature who has left an imprint on so many important initiatives all over the world has chosen to be with us at the Vivekanand International Foundation this afternoon. Thank you, sir. Excellency, the VIF is named after eminent Indian personality, Swami Vivekanand, a 19th century spiritual leader and philosopher who believed in the oneness of mankind and who, through his teachings, strove to promote global peace and understanding. He traveled extensively, including to the US, England, and Europe, and represented India at the Parliament of World Religions held at Chicago in 1893, and introduced to the Western world the concept of Vedanta and yoga and oneness of universe, so very relevant even today. VIF is an independent, non-partisan think tank and strives to bring together the best minds to ideate on key national and international issues, promotes initiatives that further the cause of peace and global harmony. We work with like-minded think tanks drawn from across the world. We have a robust engagement with Russian International Affairs Council in Moscow. Excellency, you may be pleased to know that the VIF and RIAC recently published a joint report, the 70th anniversary of Russia-India relations, New Horizons of Privileged Partnership, that was released in Moscow in October by Ambassador Pankaj Saran. We also released the report in New Delhi at the VIF last month in the presence of Ambassador Kudashev. Our leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, have infused vigor and momentum into India-Russian relations through their regular consultations. Both have ensured expeditious implementation of the strategic and economic dimensions of our relations and created a positive environment for us to work together and further expand our relations. This year, we are celebrating the 70th year of diplomatic relations. At this juncture of our journey, Indo-Russian relations are poised to diversify and achieve even greater heights. I now request Honorable Minister to address us. He'll be speaking on global affairs and new vistas of Russian-Indian cooperation. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Arvind Gupta, dear ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to launch this project of the Vivekananda Foundation dedicated to the prominent Russian diplomat Alexander Kadakin. My sincere gratitude goes to our Indian friends for the high appreciation accorded to the achievements of our late colleague, for the efforts taken to immortalize his name, including in the form of the Kadakin Memorial Lecture. Alexander Mikhailovich, or Sasha, as his friends called him, had a bright and remarkable personality. He was a true professional. He loved India, which, in his own words, became his karma. He invested literally all his energy and talent in the shaping and strengthening of the Russia-India special and privileged strategic partnership. Diplomatic relations between our two states were established 70 years ago. The past 7 decades have brought remarkable results. We have every right to be proud of them. Our nations and peoples are bound by strong ties of friendship, mutual sympathy, trust, respect for each other's culture, traditions, and interests. Political dialogue develops in a dynamic manner. Annual summits enable us to take stock of what was achieved in key areas of cooperation and outline future perspectives. A solid treaty base has been formed and is being developed further. Large-scale projects have been launched in various spheres, from energy to pharmaceutics. The Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technological, and Cultural Cooperation and the Intergovernmental Commission on Military Technical Cooperation meet regularly, producing effective results. At the same time, we should not rest on our laurels, especially given the current rapid changes in the world. Building on the experience and broadening our interaction in a creative way, we should move forward and pursue new promising avenues for cooperation. First of all, in order to achieve a breakthrough in trade and investments. Obviously, the current volume cannot be found satisfactory for our two countries. We aim to increase it to $30 billion by the year 2025, and this goal can be achieved through combining our natural competitive advantages and promoting spectacular joint endeavors such as in aerospace industry or shipbuilding. The Russian-Indian Working Group on Priority Investment Projects, which functions within the Bilateral Economic Commission, have selected 12 most promising projects to be launched, in particular in the states of Gujarat, Karnataka, and others, where Russian companies will invest in construction of a rubber plant, production of lighting equipment, development of a smart city prototype for India. These plans, which correspond to the Make in India concept announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, make it even more urgent to ensure the early conclusion of an intergovernmental agreement on reciprocal investment protections that would reflect a balance of interest of both sides. Moscow shares with New Delhi innovative know-how in peaceful uses of nuclear energy, thus contributing to the energy security of your country. Implementation of the flagship project, construction of the Kudankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu, is in full swing. The first unit is already fully operational. The second one has been delivered to the Indian side. Work continues on units 3 through 6. And let me recall that the strategic vision for strengthening cooperation and peaceful uses of atomic energy between the Republic of India and the Russian Federation, signed in December 2014, sets an even more ambitious goal: to build at least 12 power units by the year 2020. Our military and technical cooperation with India is characterized by a unique level of trust, be it direct supplies or joint production of weapons and various military equipment. The experts know only too well that Russia's offers on most of the military equipment cooperation, military technical cooperation remain the best options for India. This will become more competitive even further with the steps being taken to improve after-sales maintenance. The joint enterprise producing the world's best supersonic cruise missile, BrahMos, is our common special pride. Plans are being discussed for joint development of other weapons, including for their promotion in third countries. This will involve further transfer of the Russian military know-how. Contacts between regions and business communities of the two countries enrich our bilateral links. Last June at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after having held full-fledged negotiations with President Vladimir Putin, also had a very fruitful meeting with the governors of several constituent entities of the Russian Federation. We welcome the participation of the Indian delegation led by Minister of External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, in the Third Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok last September, and a very fruitful Russian-Indian business dialogue which took place there. Russia has something to offer in the field of education and personnel training. More than one generation of Indian engineers, medical and other specialists have received education in our country. We should build upon this experience and develop it further, inter alia in the context of implementing the Skilling India program initiated by the Indian government. Efficiency of our common efforts in this area and their practical relevance to our citizens will be greatly enhanced when an ongoing work is finalized on the draft intergovernmental agreement on mutual recognition of education and academic degrees in general and medical fields. Our privileged strategic partnership implies close and long-term coordination in international arena. We value our interaction on the world issues. The independent and responsible foreign policy of India has always been an important factor contributing to global and regional security and stability, and we hope this legacy will be protected and strengthened. In the United Nations and other multilateral fora, India and Russia have been consistently advocating compliance with the United Nations Charter and other norms and principles of international law, including territorial integrity, independence and sovereign equality of states, respect for cultural and civilizational pluralism of the world, as well as for the right of peoples to choose freely their own political and socio-economic development models. Together with many like-minded friends, India and Russia seek to make international life more just and democratic, increase the role of developing countries in multilateral institutions such as the United Nations, IMF, and the World Bank. Consolidation of efforts to promote necessary reforms continues on in various formats. Just today we held the 15th meeting of foreign ministers of RIC, the group launched in late 1990s, which gave birth to BRICS later. In its turn, BRICS became a very influential player in G20, especially since several other participants of the group coordinate with our 5 countries on issues related to the reform of international monetary and financial system. Accession by New Delhi to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a full member has significantly enhanced the political profile and potential of that organization as well, not least as regards its capacity to help stabilize the situation in Central and South Asia and resolve the crisis in and around Afghanistan. Strengthening Indian-Russian cooperation can help find fair and durable solutions to numerous challenges in the Asia-Pacific region. We believe that sustainable security architecture in the Asia-Pacific region cannot be achieved through closed block arrangement and is only possible on an open-ended collective basis building upon the principles of indivisible security, rule of international law, peaceful settlement of disputes, non-use of force or threat of force. We are glad that India not only shares our approach, but is also an active partner in the discussions of regional architecture which have been launched in the framework of the East Asia summits. The place of regular dialogue mechanism was established in Jakarta at the headquarters of ASEAN on the strategic developments issues of the region. The unprecedented outburst of international terrorism poses the most serious threat for all nations. This evil can only be efficiently dealt with if we all join our efforts and act together as truly universal anti-terrorist coalition, acting without double standards and hidden agendas. The tasks of defeating ISIL and Nusra in all its incarnations, countering the trans-border movements of foreign terrorist fighters, and curbing the spread of terrorist ideology are priorities of today. At the East Asian Summit in Manila on November 14, a declaration proposed by Russia was adopted on combating ideological challenges of terrorism, terrorist ideas, and propaganda. We count on continued cooperation with our Indian partners on this track. It is obvious that well-being of all people living across the vast Eurasian mainland can hardly be ensured without robust and indivisible economic development. It must be really and genuinely inclusive, not based on subjectively conceived closed trade blocs contradicting the principles of the global trading system under the WTO. Last June, President Putin suggested to think of a fundamentally new economic initiative in Eurasia, whereby existing sub-regional integration arrangements will gradually move towards liberalizing trade and investment regimes between their members. What we have in mind is to build upon the interest shown by many countries and groups to seek free trade arrangements with Eurasian Economic Union. India is among those who begins relevant negotiations next month already. At the next stage, it is envisaged to expand the process to involve member countries of the Eurasian Economic Union, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, ASEAN, and why not, European Union, if they opt for promoting their basic economic interests, to build what we can call a grand Eurasian partnership. I believe that regional cooperation schemes existing in South Asia could also benefit from joining. Ladies and gentlemen, there are all prerequisites in place for full engagement of the truly inexhaustible potential of the Indian-Russian strategic partnership. We have experience accumulated today. We have political will. We have coinciding priorities. The two governments have agreed how to move forward in the best interest of our two countries. Whatever we do at the official level must be strongly supported by the people, including scholars and expert community. I have no doubt that political scientists of both countries have bold and realistic ideas on future steps to take forward our special and privileged strategic partnership. In October this year in Moscow, there was a conference to which Mr. Gupta just referred, jointly organized by the Russian Foreign Relations Council and the Vivekananda International Foundation. The agenda was strategic vision of Russian-Indian relations and of the changing world order. I believe that a dialogue on these issues should become regular. The answers to the multitude of extremely complex and complicated issues confronting the modern world require collective thinking. And I would conclude by thanking your foundation for making a great contribution to these efforts, including through establishing the Kadakin Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much, and I'll be entertaining your questions. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister has agreed to take a few questions, so the floor is now open. Yeah, please. The mic.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Jem Chopra. I'm a combat veteran of 4 wars, and my first visit to your country was in 1981 when I took a senior defense delegation. Excellency, my intervention is triggered by global affairs. The RIC, Russia, India, China, which was conceived by Primakov long ago, seemed at that point of time to be a non-starter. Today the position is that China dominates RIC economically, militarily and otherwise. And as far as the 3 countries are concerned, between us and Russia, we don't have any issue at all, so well brought out by you. But with China, we have the nuclear issue, the terrorism issue, trade imbalance. In view of 3 countries not gelling together, do you think there is any meaningful future for this organization, especially with BRICS having been formulated and you've got the Quad hovering in the shadows? Thank you, Chair.
Well, had it been immediately after the first meeting that you were asking this question, maybe I would be pondering upon it. But after the 15th meeting, I think the answer is obvious. And I believe that, by the way, today we ended by a lunch with Minister Swaraj suggesting a toast to promoting better relations not only between China and India, but also between India and Pakistan. We all would be only glad if the controversies and misunderstandings, misgivings could be openly addressed and honestly resolved. And to continue thinking how we can overcome the issues mentioned by you, I believe next speaker in this audience should be Foreign Minister of China.
Yes. Yes, please.
Excellency, on Afghanistan, there is a convergence of views between India and Russia on what the situation should be in Afghanistan. But there appears to be a divergence as to how to bring about peace and stability in Afghanistan. Because if the the softness which Russia seems to be showing towards the Taliban, and that remains a root of the problem in Afghanistan. And this distinction which is drawn between the ISIL and the Taliban, given that the ISIL in Afghanistan is but a breakaway faction of the Taliban. So what is this confidence which the Russians seem to have in the Taliban? And if I may just ask supplementary, the Russians seem to be getting interested in participating, at least that's what the Pakistanis say, in the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Now the Chinese are, of course, they are reconciled to losing 80% of their investment in Pakistan. The Russians have any estimate of how much they expect to lose by investing in Pakistan?
Well, I think you have been deeply penetrated by some propaganda. On the Taliban, never ever was there any proof, any fact that Russia supported the Taliban, as some of the American officials alluded, or that we even armed the Taliban. We have contacted the Taliban only for two reasons. When our citizens or citizens of our allies got into harm's way, and we need to extract them from there. And the second reason is to persuade the Taliban to sit down and to negotiate. But we always reserve and say they must join the negotiations provided they respect criteria established by the Security Council, that they renounce terrorism, renounce violence, sever any links to terrorist organizations, and respect the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Having been criticized by the Americans for quite some time, lately I heard the US officials saying that we call upon the Taliban to join the negotiations without any criteria being respected. So make your own conclusions. I don't think that the recent American strategy on Afghanistan, which was announced and which puts emphasis on the use of force to defeat those who would not be cooperating and those who would be engaged in violence, I don't think it would work, frankly. For the last 16 years, the presence of the huge army of NATO did not manage neither to curb extremism and terrorism, nor to stop the drug production, which this year reached all-time record. Opium and heroin produced in Afghanistan, I think from 9/11, maybe quadrupled or even more. It is to be understood and accepted that this is something which feeds terrorist activities directly. And it also has to be understood that without precursors, this drug production would not be possible. And most precursors come from Europe. So what we need is to have no doubt double standards, a united front against terrorism in all its incarnations, in all its forms, including financing terrorism, including the drug industry which feeds terrorism, terrorist ideology, and so on and so forth. On Afghanistan specifically, there used to be a group called 6+1. That was the time when the Taliban were ruling in Afghanistan, and on that occasion the group was meeting several times, and it was useful to see what some of the neighbors, plus Russia, plus the United States, and the UN, of course, can do about the situation. Since then, there is a legitimate government in Kabul, though we can argue how this government was assembled. what kind of elections took place, who was winning, who was announced, as or rather who announced the recount of the votes, the results of which were never made public. They just said that it was, this is the result. And we can also argue about the role outside players had in creating this particular political system in Afghanistan. Never any imposed system from outside can be sustainable. We see this in Afghanistan, where problems accumulate domestically. We see it in Yemen, where a deal agreed by outside players were just imposed on the country, and we have what we have in Yemen. Then there was a conference called, well, then there was a quartet, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, and the United States. They met several times, then they stopped meeting, now they think of meeting again. Then there is a Kabul process, which for me and for this stage, I believe is too large. It would be necessary when it comes to reconstruction, to mobilizing support for rebuilding the country, but to find a solution for a political crisis and to find a solution to moving the violent stage of play into negotiations, you need a smaller group of countries, and that's, in our view, all participants of 6+1, but also all Central Asian countries, because each and every of them, not only Tajikistan and Uzbekistan as neighbors and Turkmenistan as neighbors, but others as well, they feel the bad influence of what is going on in Afghanistan. We convened it, we called it a Moscow process. Unfortunately, the Americans declined, I don't know why. And instead they play again now with 6+1 thing. My point is that you cannot resolve the situation without having everybody on board, everybody around the table. The government, the Taliban, and those who can really influence the situation, including neighbors. That's what Russia basically did a couple of times. People who participated said it was useful. And in any case, we are now shifting into, with India and Pakistan having joined Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we revived the contact group Shanghai Cooperation plus Afghanistan. It met in October this year in Moscow. It is meeting early next year in China, and we would be certainly welcoming Indian initiative to invite another meeting of this contact group to Delhi. Then there was something about China-Pakistan economic corridor. You know, we have our own corridors. We have huge territory. We don't need any other corridors. We need to develop our own, but not to play into the hand of competition. Why should we? But the overall picture of Eurasian economic development is certainly to be borne in mind, because Kazakhstan is offering its territory. Azerbaijan is interested to link Central Asia with Caspian region, and China has the concept which we believe is very interesting and needs to be explored in the context of building some harmonious relationship, trade-wise, investment-wise, transport-wise, logistically as well, in Eurasian continent. I know that India has problems. We discussed it today with the concept of one belt, one road. But the specific problem in this regard should not make everything else conditional on resolving political differences. India is a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So is Russia. So is China. So are practically all Central Asian countries. All of them already signed documents with China on cooperation in the context of one road, one belt. Russia and other members of Eurasian Economic Union conclude an economic cooperation agreement with China. Those are facts, the facts on the ground, which are going to be developed further. And I am 100% convinced that India has enough very smart diplomats and politicians to find a way which would allow you to benefit from this process and not to at the same time not to sacrifice your positions of principle.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Ramesh Ramachandran. I'm a journalist with Beyond Television. Mr. Minister, why is it, my question also pertains to the AFPAC region, the so-called AFPAC region. Why is it, Mr. Minister, that Russia and some of its colleagues in the UN Security Council, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they are so reluctant to call Pakistan's bluff when it comes to terrorism? Now, there's enough evidence already available, some of it in the public domain, about its complicity or duplicity on the issue of terrorism. So in your estimation, do you think Pakistan can be a fit case for being designated as a state sponsor? Or do you think Pakistan is an issue which India alone has to deal with? Thank you.
There is no such thing as a UN list of states sponsoring terrorism. There is an American list which they use as they please, but there is no such thing at the United Nations as the list of states sponsoring terrorism. The Security Council agrees on criteria to include a specific organization and to list it as terrorist. And if you take a look at the Security Council documents as well as at the declaration of the BRICS summit in China last September, you would see quite a list of organizations which we all condemn as terrorists. And maybe this would be some kind of useful information for you. Otherwise, we all want terrorism to be eradicated from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from each and every country on earth. And yes, we understand Pakistan's interest, its own interest, to get rid of terrorist groups which use its territory. And we would be ready to support the Pakistani government in this regard. I believe everybody should.
Yes. Well, I don't see. Oh, yeah, okay.
Excellency, my name is Dipanjan with Economic Times newspaper. With regard to the Make in India program in the defense sector, how much is Russia willing to go in terms of the technology transfer beyond BrahMos?
Well, I said in my statement that as we continue and deepen our cooperation in military technical matters, this would involve more know-how from Russia to be transferred. If you want me to go in some, I don't know, maybe you represent a competitive company, you know.
Okay, I'll take the last question there and then we will end it. Yeah, please.
Sir, I work for Times now. My name is Srinjoy Chaudhary. Sir, recently, senior Air Force officials have written to the government, the Defense Minister. There has been a presentation for her as well about the FGFA. There appears to be some doubts. Now, can you tell me if this has been, this information has been handed, the fifth generation fighter program? This information has been given to the Russian side.
By whom?
By the Indian government. That's one. And secondly,
and this information was about what? That this is...
They have doubts about the FGFA. This report was written by Air Vice Marshal of the Indian Air Force and handed over to the Defense Minister. There was also a presentation. After all these years and after so much money being spent, the other point is, can you tell us if a second Akula is going to be transferred to India?
Look, first of all, there is a special place to discuss these things. And if you want to satisfy your curiosity, I am sorry, this is not the subject which is appropriate for this particular purpose. I can only say that if we have agreement on both sides, on any project, be it military technical, be it economic, logistical, what have you, then this project is going to be implemented. If one side, one party is not interested, then this is the situation. No one is going to twist hands and to impose something.
Okay, thank you very much for these interactions, sir. And now I hand over, request the ambassador to kindly come to the dais. Yeah, thank you.
International Foundation, Your Excellency Mr. Sergey Viktorovich Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Your Excellency Mr. Ajit Kumar Doval, the National Security Advisor. It is my honor today to introduce to you two outstanding Indian diplomats, Mr. Kanwal Sibal as well as Mr. Satinder Kumar Lamba. They've got different careers, but there is a definite meeting point, which is Moscow, where they've managed to make an immense contribution to the development of our international cooperation, as well as bilateral relationship. To acknowledge this contribution, as well as to commemorate the 70th anniversary of our bilateral, of the establishment of our diplomatic ties, it is my honor that they are awarded with the Plate for International Coordination Award of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia. Ekaterina?
I invite His Excellency Ambassador Kanwal Sibal on stage to accept the award.
This is the documental proof.
Now I invite on stage His Excellency Ambassador Satinder Lamba to accept the award, please.